Please remember that the complete information for the class that you are about to view is at eliithecomputerguy.com. Not only do we have our videos there, but we have part lists, diagrams, pictures, and even complete code examples. So if you are watching this video and you want more information, please go to eliithecomputerguy.com. Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the Computer Guy, and in today's class, we are going to continue our little picture gallery project that we have been working on for the past number of classes. So originally, we created a little picture gallery where essentially all we did is we dumped pictures into a folder, and then we had PHP dynamically create an HTML document with those pictures all being in one stream. Then we did a little bit extra coding. We added some fancier CSS and the whole 9 yards, and basically we could then put our images into one folder, and then we could create a more complicated picture gallery based off of that. Essentially, you would go to the website, a gallery would open up with a whole bunch of different image thumbnails. You could then click on those image thumbnails, and those images would be larger for you. The problem is when all you're doing is simply dumping picture files into a folder, you really don't have a lot of information to work with there. You don't have tag information, you don't have possibly user account information, you don't have necessarily the type of timestamps that you would want, so on and so forth. So in the previous class, what we did is we actually created a photo gallery using a MySQL backend in order to store that type of data. So basically now what will happen is when you upload an image, a record is created within a MySQL database table, and in that table you have things like the image name, you can have the image description, you can have image tags, you can have timestamp, you can even continue on with things such as user account ownership, whether or not the image should be viewable or who the image should be viewable by. You can put a lot of different information into that MySQL database table, and then what you're able to do is then you're able to actually dynamically create the HTML document based off of the information in that table. Why that's going to be important in the future is, again, when we start doing things like user account creation. So if you want to have different users be able to have their own like wall feeds, basically like you would see in something like Instagram or Twitter, you're going to need some user account information there. Or if you want to be able to do things like search based off of tags. So if you want to create tags for a particular image, basically using that MySQL database table backend, you can have those tags residing in the records for that image. You can then do a search, basically any image with these tags, show me what those are, and then basically because those tags are there and because it's in a MySQL database table, you can have PHP only print out, only make viewable the images that relate to those tags. So those are some of the things that you can do, having the MySQL database table as the back end for your gallery. Well, one of the issues that you get into at this point is, so we've learned how to basically dynamically create our gallery. We've learned how to upload images into our gallery and save information about those images in a MySQL database table. But what if we fat finger things? What if we fat finger things when we're uploading the image? What if we put in the wrong information? What if we just, again, fat finger, do something stupid? And so now that image is in your database table in relation to the image that you uploaded. Well, then the problem's going to be when you do things like searches or anything else, if there is bad data in the table, if there's bad data in the record, that's going to cause problems for the rest of the application. So what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to show you how to be able to edit the records in the table so that you can do things such as add tags or modify tags, modify the description, so on and so forth. So that's what the class is going to be today. So the concept that we're going to be playing with a little bit today is basically the concept of that primary key, the concept of having an absolutely unique record in your MySQL database table. So this is very important to understand in the computer world. Remember, the computer world, computers can't think outside of the box. Literally, their job is not to think outside the box. You give them code, they run the code. that's what they do. So one of the problems you can get into is if you have a MySQL database table, or really any database table, and if you have actual duplicate records within that table, it can run into problems because the computer may not understand which record it's supposed to deal with. So imagine if you upload images, and let's just say you upload the exact same image, somehow you give it the exact same description, somehow you give it the exact same tab, and somehow, let's say, it has the exact same timestamp, right? The problem is if you have two absolute duplicate records within your table, when the computer then goes to try to find whatever record is that you're looking for, if two records match and they're identical, you're gonna run into problems. So one of the big things whenever you're dealing with records in a table is that there is some identifier in that table that makes every single record absolutely unique. And so what we're doing with the table that we've created, our MySQL database table, is we've created what's called a primary key of pic_ID. So basically this is simply a picture number in auto increments. Every time you upload a new image, the number for that picture ID goes up by 1. And so basically what that means is, if nothing else, right, the image may be the same, the description may be the same, the tags may be the same, somehow, possibly, maybe even the timestamp is the same, but every single record within your database table, if nothing else, will have a unique primary key, a unique picture ID. And so why that is going to be important for the project, the demonstration that we're going to be doing today, is we have to be able to find a way to be able to refer to the record that we're dealing with in the MySQL database table in order to be able to pull that information and then be able to edit that information. So essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating an HTML form, much like the HTML form we used in order to upload an image. But when we create that HTML form using PHP, what we're going to do is we're going to make the default values for picture description and picture tags what is already in the record for that image in the MySQL database table. So PHP is automatically going to create this form for us, and it's going to automatically populate those fields in the form with whatever is already in the record. So in order to be able to do that, again, we need to be able to understand which record we're dealing with. So we're going to be dealing with that pic_ID. So again, that's an absolutely unique identifier for the record that we're going to be dealing with. And then when we go to update, so again, we're dealing with one particular image. The information is pulled out of the database. The default values for the fields use the information pulled out of the database. And then when we modify those fields and then we hit submit, basically we have to make sure that we update the proper record, right? We don't want to update the wrong record. You can get into problems, right? And so how we make sure that we're updating the appropriate record is by, again, referring back to that picture_ID, that absolutely unique number, and saying, okay, now that we've modified whatever we're going to modify, when we hit submit, update this specific record, not a different record. So today, one of the most important things to come out of this particular demonstration, this particular class, is understanding how to toss around this identifier within the MySQL world using PHP and HTML so that you're always dealing with whatever record it is that you want to deal with. So now that I've explained that a little bit, let's go over. I'm going to show you a demonstration. So I'm going to show you the finished product for today. Then we're going to go to the whiteboard to explain this just a little bit more, just so you understand what's going on, and then I will show you the code. So with that, let's go to the computer and I can give you the demonstration. So here we are at my demonstration computer. Again, for this demonstration, in order to actually simply view the gallery and be able to do all the updates and everything, all you need is a web browser. So I'm using a MacBook Pro, but the important thing here is I just simply need a web browser. With this web browser, I am connecting to the LAMP server, the Linux Apache MySQL PHP server, sitting at the IP address of 10.0.1.29, and basically I am connecting to this PHP script called gallerydb.php. So to do what I'm showing you right now, you just need a web browser. If you have a Chromebook or whatever else, that's fine. Everything that's actually functional, that's really happening, is happening on the server itself. So here, basically, we can see that we have a little photo stream that I've created. And again, the important thing to understand about this photo stream is this information is being pulled from the MySQL database. It's not simply being pulled from the folder like it was in one of the previous demonstrations that I did. I did modify, I did edit the how how the information for this picture shows up a little bit, just to make it a little bit easier to understand. So we can see the pic number is pic number 14, pic name, this is the image of this particular picture, the pic description, again, whatever description you want to put there, and pic tags, you know, cute dog, countertop, food, kitchen. And again, in the future, we'll then be able to search based off of those types of tags. So any picture that has a dog in the tag, we could then search for simply dog, and then that would show up. So basically, when we're taking a look at this, the most important field that we're going to be dealing with today is this pic number. So this is the ID. This is the pic underscore ID that's sitting in the MySQL database table. And so this is what we're going to be dealing with today. Every time I'm going to be editing this picture, whenever I'm going to be updating this picture, all of that is going to rely on having that unique identifier of what the picture number is. So basically here, if I click on the edit, so we're taking a look at this image, so I click on edit. When I open this up, again, we're now going to see it's pic number 14 as it was before. Again, we see the pic name. And then for pic description, what we're now seeing is that instead of simply having text printed out, this is now a text box, an editable text box. For pic tags, again, this is now an editable text box, and you can see that the editable text box is pre-populated with whatever was in the record in the database. So the thing to be looking at here is basically what we're doing is we're using something called get. So get allows you to pass a variable name and a value for that variable within a URL. So basically what I did is when I created the hyperlink, I dynamically created the hyperlink using PHP. And when I did that, not only did I point to the gallery edit db.php, but then I also added a variable name called pic number, and then I added the value of that as 14. So basically whenever we're dealing with this image, we're not actually dealing with the image. And that's the important thing to understand. Like when you're dealing with coding and all that kind of thing, we're not dealing with the image. We're dealing with things like pointers to the image. So we're dealing with record 14, and record 14 happens to relate to this image. I think that's an important thing to understand. Anyway, so here, I don't know, for pic description, I can say this is a demo for the class, right? And then I can just do another tag, right? So basically, I'm just updating this just to show you that you can do it, and then you hit submit. When you hit submit, hopefully if everything works properly with this particular code that we're doing today, it'll simply say it updated, and then again, you get a link to go back to the gallery. Do remember, whenever you're creating code, do not create a dead end with your code. There should always be a link to go somewhere else. So I go back, and then now we can see that this pic number 14 has been updated. This is a demo for the class. You know, that's what I wrote in there. And then I added another tag. So that way I was able to update the records for this image and only this image. Again, you'll see all of the other images here. They are as they are. So if we can go down, maybe with this one, you know, so pic 18, I can click here. And again, maybe for the pic tags, I could do sleeping dog, you know, pillow, couch, I don't know, add all that kind of stuff in. And then we hit submit. It updated, we go back, we scroll down, and so we can see sleeping dog, pillow, couch, and I was able to modify the tags for the record for this particular image. So with that, let's go over to the whiteboard just to explain the concept with this a little bit more, and then I will show you the code. So let's just take a moment again just to go over, you know, theoretically what is happening here. So basically we have our web server, right? We have our www web server. In this server, we have a folder, and this folder has all of the image files, right? So what happens is basically when a user goes to the website, you know, the .com website, there is going to be a little web page there, and it's going to allow them to upload images into this particular folder. But the important thing to understand, when they're going to be uploading images to this particular folder, at the exact same time, you have your MySQL MySQL database. And so what you're going to do is, as the image is being uploaded to the folder, a new record is going to be created within your MySQL database table. And so when you create that record, you can have any number of fields you want for that record. So the most important one that we're going to be dealing with today is the ID. Remember, when you upload an image or you create a new record, every new record is going to have a unique ID. So the first record will be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and all the way down, hopefully, to 1,000,000, right? The important thing isn't the number itself, but that there is an absolutely unique number there. Then past that, you're going to have the name for the image. Then past that, you're going to have the description for the image. Then past that, you're going to have the tags for the image. Then past that, you're going to have the timestamp, right? So then, when somebody then goes to the web page, so they go to, your gallery, .com webpage, and they're seeing all of the images on that page. Basically, that page is going to be dynamically created with PHP, and what PHP is going to do is it's going to go and it's going to look for the information in all these records. It's then going to write out in HTML what's required in order to present those images on the page, and then it's basically just going to loop through and do all of the records, so on and so forth. So why this becomes important then is when we go to do something such as update or basically edit a record. And again, I want you to understand this. We are not editing, we are not updating the image. When we upload the image file to this folder, more or less what we've done up until this point, it just stays there. Once this image file is in the folder, it's just there. We're not dealing with it anymore. We are not updating, we are not editing the image file. We are updating and editing the record that relates to the image file. Again, very important here. So when we go and we create our little, our edit form, so basically we create that edit form, we have those different records here, we have that the different information. Basically, how we're able to associate this information in this image is by this number, right? So when we dealt with that image number 14, so basically we clicked on the image to edit it. That PHP script went to the MySQL table. It found the information for image number 14. It then created this edit form using the information from the record for image number 14. Then when we modify and we do submit, what's going to happen is the PHP script is then going to update that image number 14 that we've been dealing with. So basically that record. So it's very important to understand we're not actually dealing with the image file. Once we've uploaded the image file itself, at least for this demonstration, this project, this is locked, the images are there, we don't deal with them anymore. What we're going to be dealing with are the records in the MySQL database table, and then how we're able to deal with those records is by the unique identifier. For this particular project, we're using pic_ID. Again, this auto increments as a text. Every new image that gets uploaded, a new record is created, and a new image ID is created. And that's how we're going to be identifying the image, how to edit it, and basically when we do an update to make sure we're updating the appropriate record. So that's, I'm sure that's about as clear as mud for you. With that, let's go over to the code, and hopefully with the code you'll understand what's going on. Okay, so now we are on the server itself. I'm using a Visual Studio Code in order to write out this code because we have gotten to the point with these projects that you need something a little bit more complicated than a basic text editor. Do you remember, if you forget a single period or a single quotation mark and you don't have some way to debug your code, it will take you a long time to figure out what you did wrong. Anyways, with the project that we're going to be dealing with today, essentially we're dealing with 3 different files. We have the gallery_db.php file, we have the gallery_edit_db.php file, and we have the edit_script_db.php file. Along with that, if you've been following along doing the other demonstrations, if you want to just continue building out this project, there's also the upload thing. So basically at the top of the gallery DB, we have the link to the upload form for the DB. So you can add that in, or you can keep that alone along. Again, if you're building out your project, basically, again, at this point, we're simply building on the previous project. So if you see a couple of things here that you may not understand, it may be from the previous project, basically how we've built up to here. So basically, this with the gallery.db.php, this is essentially our default, our index file. This is where the gallery is. So the first thing, this is a PHP file, but before we get into the PHP, I am just putting that little link up there to be able to upload pictures for the database. Again, outside of the PHP, you can write normal HTML, again, for things like hyperlinks to be able to upload to get to other scripts, that type of thing. And so this, again, this is simply from the previous class. This will then point to the upload form and the upload script that we're not dealing with today. Past that, we're going to go down. We're going to then open up our PHP tag, and then we have a whole bunch of stuff essentially for the MySQL server, right? So we create all the variables and set the values for the variables for the MySQL server. So the server name equals localhost. The username, I created a pic_user account for this particular project. The password for that account is the super secret 123456, and the database that we're going to be connecting to is the gallery database. We're then going to go down here. We're going to create a variable for connection. So this is basically the MySQL connection, and it's going to be a new MySQL. You're going to pass the server name, pass the username, pass the password, and pass the database that we're going to be connecting to here. Then we're then going to go down. We're going to simply do an if statement. We're going to make sure that we can actually connect to our database. Make sure we did not fat finger something up here. And the if there's a connection error, kill the connection error, and basically print out connection error on the screen, and then whatever the connection error is. So this is very important. Again, if you fat finger, if you screwed up the password for the user, or you screwed up the database, or you screwed something else up, this will error out. Then we simply go down in order to print out. Basically what we're going to be doing initially with the gallery is we're going to be printing out this full stream of pictures. Again, if we take a look at the gallery, this is the gallery that we're going to be dealing with. This is the upload pictures hyperlink that I showed you. And then what we need to do is we need to print out the number for the picture, the name for the picture, the description for the picture, the tags for the picture, and the picture itself, along with the new thing is going to be this little edit button. And so basically we need to do this for every single image that has a record in the database. So that we go over, and basically the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create the SQL statement. The SQL statement is going to be select the pic ID, the pic name, the pic description, and the pic tags from the pictures table in the gallery database. The result is going to equal connection query SQL. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to create an array called $result, and we're going to fill that array with whatever comes from that SQL query, right? So it's going to select from pictures. And so if the results number of rows is greater than 0, so basically what this is saying is if there are any records, basically if there's anything within the table, then loop through this array. So while row equals result fetch association, so basically what's going to happen here is as long as there's a new record, there's a new value in the array, it's going to continue to loop through. So image number, we're going to create a variable called image number, and its value is going to be set to pic ID for that row. IMG SRC is going to be set to pic name for that row. IMG description is going to be set to pic description for that row, and IMG tags is going to be set to whatever the values are for pic tags in that row. Then what we're simply going to do is we're going to echo pic number and then the value for the image number. We're going to break pic name, the value for the IMG SRC, pic description, the value for IMG description, pic tags, and then the value for the IMG tags. Now what's here is this is a little bit new, right? Other than HTML coding, this is where it actually gets to be a little bit interesting for the project today, is now we're going to create the hyperlink for that edit button. So we go and we take a look at the demonstration, right? So we did the pic number and then the value for the pic number, the pic name, the value, that IMG SRC variable, the pic description, the value for the pic description, the pic tags, the value, but then we have this edit button. So we're dynamically creating this edit button using this PHP script in order to give the information for that get, right? So with a get URL, you pass a variable name with a value. So we're going to be creating that edit button. So this is the edit button that we're going to be creating. And so we're going to do an ahref. And then what we're going to say is ahref, this is going to be a link to the gallery edit db.php script. So that's going to be this script right here. And what we're going to do is going to do question mark. So question mark then says what follows is variable information. And so we're going to create a variable called pick number, and we are going to then set it equal to the value for image number, IMG number, right? So this pick ID, the value for pick ID within the MySQL database table is going to be assigned to IMG number. And then here, basically what we're saying is when somebody clicks on this edit button, also send a variable called pick number with a value of image number. Then basically we just have the edit, then we close the hyperlink, then we break, and then here is where we actually do the IMG SRC. So this is where we actually print out the image itself, right? So we're taking a look here. Again, this is the dynamically created hyperlink for the edit script, and this is the image. So if I click on this edit, what we'll notice is, so again, see how this is? So gallery edit db.php question mark pick number equals 14. So what it does is it says, okay, this is the variable and this is the value for the variable. If I simply do back and I go down to for 16, I hit edit. And what we can see is it dynamically created this hyperlink to be that, gallery edit db.php pick number, that is now 16. So again, we're using that pick underscore ID value within MySQL to be able to associate what image that we're going to be dealing with. And then we come back and else. So again, this is the else. If there are 0 results, simply print out 0 results. We're then going to close the connection, and then we're going to close the PHP. So essentially with this gallery db.php, this looks a lot like what we used in the previous demonstration. The difference here is I modified basically how the information for the image is printed out, makes it a little bit easier to read. And then we've added this gallery edit db.php get hyperlink. So again, when we click on that edit hyperlink, it will send us to the gallery edit db script with a value for the record that we're going to be dealing with, and then that script is going to auto create an HTML form. So let's go over and take a look at that gallery edit db.php script. So this is the script itself, and basically one of the interesting things that we're going to be doing here is we're going to be dynamically writing out the HTML form. So basically, this is where I show you, if we go over to the demonstration, and we hit edit, basically when I create this form here, I am now dynamically creating this with PHP so that I can do things such as add the default value for these text input fields with whatever is in the record itself. So let's go and take a look at this. And so we'll go up here. Basically, we're going to be opening up the PHP tag again, since this is a PHP script. We are then going to create a variable called $pick underscore ID, and we're going to assign the value of that to get. So we've used get before, and whatever the value of pick number is, right? So, so what this is with the URL up at the top, what the get is doing is it says whatever the value is for this variable, assign that to $pick underscore ID. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. Then we're going to come down here. Again, we're going to connect to our MySQL server again, server name, username, password, database. We're going to create the connection, and we're going to do the if. And basically, if you're not able to connect, kill the connection, kill the attempt to connect the connection, and say what the error is. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using a different SQL statement, right? So basically here what we're going to be doing is we're going to say select picture ID, pick name, pick description, pick tags from pictures where, and this is the important thing, right? Where pick ID equals the value of $pick underscore ID, right? So when we send, so in this URL, when we send this value here, now what's going to be happening is this SQL statement is going to go to the database and it's going to say, give me this information from a record where the pick underscore ID equals the value that I just sent in that get. The result, then we're going to create that array for result, connection, query, SQL. So then we're going to send the SQL statement. Then what we're going to do here is if the result, basically number of rows, is greater than 0. So basically, as long as we didn't totally hose something up, fat finger something, right? Basically, we're then going to create an array called result. And that array with result will have the pick ID, the pick name, the pick description, and the pick tags in it. Row is going to basically equal result fetch association. So with this, essentially when we're going to be interacting with that array result, that's what we're going to be dealing with down here. And so image number is going to equal row, whatever pick ID is. IMG SRC, row, pick name, image description equals row, pick description, image tags equals row, pick tags. So that is basically how we're going to be pulling information in from the MySQL database, assigning the values of those records to PHP variables, and then we're going to be able to interact with them in PHP. Now here we're going to create the form. So we're dynamically creating the form. So echo form action. And so basically with this, when we put in information and we hit the submit button, we then want to send the information to the edit script.db.php script. So basically this is dynamically creating a form, and when you hit the submit button, it will then send the information to this script. Past that, method post. So that's a normal, basically how you're going to be doing the posting method with a form, and type multi-part form data. Again, since we're dealing with form. Then we're going to echo pick number equals the image number. So again, when we start looking at the demonstration, we're looking at the demonstration. So now it is going to be printing this out. So pick number equals pick number. And then under that, one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to do input type hidden. We're going to do pick number value equals image number. So one of the things here, right? So basically here, what I'm doing is I'm simply printing out the image number onto the screen. So we're printing out the image number onto the screen. But remember, we're dealing with a form. So when I hit the submit button, I can only submit information that is actually a value in the form. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a value in the form of a type called hidden. So you can actually pass form data to a PHP script and make it hidden from the user. It doesn't have to show up as a text box or something like that. So I'm creating a hidden input type with the name of pick number with the value of that image number. So this is how I'm going to be passing that picture number again to that edit script db.php. This is how we're going to be associating. Again, that image number is how we're always going to be associating the record that we're dealing with. Past that, we're going to do echo pick name. And we're simply going to print out what the picture name is, break. And so that's, when we take a look here, again, we're not going to be modifying this. So this is what we actually use for the SRC. That's how we're actually able to embed the image. So I do not want my people to be able to edit this, and I don't want this edited at all. Again, I create a hidden value for the picture name because the picture name is important. That's the record identifier. For this, I'm not going to create a hidden value because I don't care. I'm not modifying this. I'm not editing it. We're not really using this for an association. That is simply what's in the record itself. Then we're going to go down. Again, we're going to do pick description. So that's going to be the description. Input type equals text. Name equals pick description. Value then is going to equal image description, the value for IMG description. And so value here, so value is where you can add a default value to an HTML form. And so that value then is this. So basically what happened is we pulled all the fields from the record for this particular image within the table. And then what we've done is we've associated the pick description. The value of pick description is now the value for image description. And so that's how I'm then setting the default value in the form itself. Break. Then we're going to have pick tags. So again, input type of text, name of pick tags, value. So again, what the default value is going to be whatever we currently have for IMG tags. That is going to come from the database for pick tags. Again, so that's an important thing. So we're going to pre-populate those fields of the form so that we don't erase what we already have. Again, if we already have 10 tags, we don't want to erase the tags we have. We want to see what tags we have and possibly modify the tags. And then when we hit the submit button, anything that's left within this text box is what we want to be submitted into the database. Then we're going to come down. input type equals submit, and then we're going to end the form. And so basically when we press the submit button, it's going to send all of this information to the edit script db.php. Then we come down here. Again, this is where the img src, so this is simply where we embed the image into the HTML document. Else, so if for some reason this does not work, you're going to get an error. Then you're going to do the connection close. Then you're going to close the PHP. And again, you always want to have a link. You never want to have a dead end. So we simply have a link back to the gallery here. And again, if we come down, this is where you have the image embedded, and then we have this link back to the gallery. So then when we press the submit button, yet another tag, right? So anyways, we can just hit the submit button, and so all of this information was then sent to the edit script db.php. It then parsed all that form data, put it into the record. It worked properly, and so now we see it updated. So let's go take a look at that particular script. So this information is sent to the edit script db.php. So here all we're going to be doing is we're simply going to be opening up the PHP. And then here, again, for the post data, so we posted down here, this dynamic form that we created, this is post, right? So when you send information in a URL, that is get. When you use a form, generally you're going to be using post. So basically here what we're going to be doing is number equals post, pick number, description equals post, pick description, and tags equals post, pick tags. Again, the same thing, server name, username, password, database. We're going to have a connection, and we're going to do the if we don't connect, kill the connection. Then down here for the SQL statement, we're going to have a new SQL statement. So we're going to have an update SQL statement. So for the value for SQL is going to be update pictures, set pick underscore description. So this is the field within the MySQL database. Set the value of this to whatever the value of description is. Set the value of pick underscore tags to whatever the value of tags is, where pick underscore ID equals that number. So again, this is where we're always referencing that number. We're always referencing the pick ID. So update only the record that matches whatever that pick ID is. Then we're going to do if, and then connection query SQL. So basically, if this equals true. So basically, if you're able to do the connection and you're able to do the SQL statement and everything goes through, you didn't fat finger anything, you didn't screw anything up, then basically all we're going to do is we're going to simply echo it updated. So again, if you want to do a more complicated application, you could print out a lot more information here. Again, you could print out the image, you could print out a whole bunch of stuff. At this point, just to make it a little bit simpler, all I'm doing is just simply printing out it updated so that you know it worked, else echo update failed. So if you screwed up the SQL statement here, if you screwed up when you were passing values somewhere, it'll fail and you know it'll fail, and then you can go back and do some editing. Then basically we're just simply going to close the PHP, and then of course we're always going to put some kind of link at the bottom so that there is no dead end in your application. This is simply going to go back to the gallery. So here, that's the thing, we go back and we go to the gallery, and we can see that this picture number 14, the tags got updated, yet another tag here, so we can see that that worked. So these are the scripts that are required in order to do the update. It is a little bit messy, to be clear. It is a little bit messy trying to do these demonstrations and explain to you specific concepts. You wind up with an ugly application sometimes, but as you can see, it obviously does work. And so this is how you can update the information for your images in your gallery using HTML forms, PHP, and MySQL. Yay! Well, if nothing else, you've basically made it to the end of the class. You may not understand what I just explained to you, but you've made it to the end. I mean, take the wins where you can get them. Sometimes the best you can do is say, hey, I stayed awake during that. So anyways, it's the real world of technology. reality. It's the real world. Don't worry. Don't worry. The more you do this type of thing, the easier it gets, the less complicated it gets. Again, it's kind of like a foreign language. You're able to read through and understand exactly what's going on. I will say, again, remember when you're looking at my code, especially if you're an old timer out there, there are a lot of things in my code that are kind of ugly, but again, it comes to that whole issue of when I'm trying to explain things to new people, how do you lay concepts out in a way that's understandable that might not be how you'd actually write it for a production environment. So do understand that. The big thing that I want you to be understanding today, again, when you're dealing with an image gallery or anything else, again, when you're dealing with PHP and MySQL, HTML forms, this type of thing, is when you're dealing with that MySQL database table, you're going to have that unique identifier. Again, generally that's the primary key. So the primary key in the database that we created for this project is pick_ID. It auto increments every new record, gets a new number. So it started at 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 1,000,000. So that way we know what record we're dealing with. It's very important, again, when you're thinking about this, that you understand we're dealing with records, not images. I think that's a big problem, especially for new people. When they're looking at something like an image gallery, they get very confused because they say, I don't understand where this information is being saved to the image. How does the image have this information? What you have to understand is the image is just a link. The image is literally just a file. We put that file into the folder, and essentially up until this point, we just forget about it, right? We upload the file into the folder, and that's it. We basically wash our hands of the file itself. Everything that we're going to be interacting with from this point forward, more or less, is going to be the record in that MySQL database table. So you edit the record, you modify the record, you delete the record, you add to the record. You're not dealing with the image itself. A very important thing to understand. And then with this, again, it's very important when you're doing things such as selecting an individual record, you're doing an update, any of that type of thing, then you need that unique identifier. So when you click on the edit button, then you're going to be editing the appropriate record. When you do the edits and you click submit, it's very important that you actually update the appropriate record. That can be a real big problem with coding, especially once you start doing larger projects. If you fat finger something and all of a sudden you're modifying the wrong record, that can cause you a lot of problems. And so with this, again, just go through, take a look at the code, try to figure out what's going on. I swear to you, it's not that bad once you actually sit down and figure it out. For this particular project, again, I have a LAMP server, a Linux Apache MySQL PHP server. I'm running Ubuntu 18.04 LTS. I'm using a graphical user interface just because that's easier for a lot of people to visualize. But with what I'm showing you for your server, you can have a basic command line. I did use something called TaskCell. So within Ubuntu, you can install an application called TaskCell. You can then call TaskCell, and then what it can do is it can very easily create specific types of servers for you. So using TaskCell, I created a LAMP server, Linux Apache MySQL PHP. It just installed all of that for me with all of the default configurations. So that's a very easy way to set up your server. I did not modify the php.ini file or any of the Apache configuration files. It's all default. But one thing to be thinking about, if you're using another distribution of Linux or whatever else, you may want to go into your php.ini file and make sure that file upload is set to on. Remember, if you're going to be using HTML forms in order to upload using PHP, in the php.ini file, the upload has to be set to on. Sometimes it's set to off, sometimes it's set to on. By default, I thought it was set to off, but then when I went to set up this lab, it was default set to on. So that's just one of those things to keep in mind. As far as the picture folder goes, so the folders that we're dealing with is I have the standard Apache root folder. So that's where I'm just dumping all these PHP and HTML forms into. And then within that, I have a pics folder. So I simply have a folder called pics. That's where all the pictures get dumped into and then where the pictures are read from. It is important for the projects that we're doing is that you have for everybody, for the outside world, that the permission is set to read and write. From a security standpoint, that's its own question, but for the demonstrations that I'm showing you, read allows you to be able to upload images into that folder. So the PHP upload can be set to on, But if everybody doesn't have permission for the folder, when they go to PHP will try to upload the file. But if there's no permission, then the Linux, the operating system, will fail the upload out. So do make sure that. For upload, and then you have to have read permission for all these projects so that people can actually read when PHP goes through and creates the gallery. The reason those IMG SRC tags work is because everybody can read it. If you don't allow for everybody to have the read permission, then the IMG SRC tags will be there. Again, that's the important thing to understand in HTML. There's all these pointers. Like when you're dealing with coding, so many times you're dealing with pointers, not the thing itself. So the image is sitting there, but if I have the IMG SRC tag pointing to that image, but the Linux operating system does not allow everybody to view the image, then basically that's where you're going to get a whole bunch of X boxes in your gallery, because the tag is there and the tag may be formatted properly, but the operating system is not allowing people to view the images, and therefore they're not going to be able to view the images. These are the kinds of things to think about. And again, this is where you need to be thinking about as a technology professional. Look at how relatively simple this script, this project is that we're dealing with. And we're starting to deal with a lot of different technologies at this point. Again, we're dealing with PHP, obviously. We're dealing with MySQL. We're dealing with HTML. In order to make this thing a hell of a lot prettier, actually useful, we're going to need to be dealing with CSS. We're dealing with the Linux operating system. We're dealing with file and folder permissions in the Linux operating system. And we're not even getting into IP addresses and firewalls and all that type of thing. And so this is why it's very important, if you're new in the technology industry, that you learn about a lot of different technologies. All these people ask me, all these new people come to me and they say, Eli, what is the language that I need to learn? And think about this. This is a stupidly simple project. This is a ridiculously simple project at this point, and we're dealing with HTML, we're dealing with PHP, we're dealing with CSS, and we're dealing with MySQL so far. And we still have a ridiculously simple project. We can easily add JavaScript onto this, and if we want to start adding other components. I mean, like this kind of little gallery application that I'm showing you, at the end of the day, theoretically, really could probably use about 6 different languages in order to make this thing work, especially when we start getting a little further down the path, when we start doing auto picture compression. So with the demonstration that I've shown you up until this point, you upload an image into the folder, and then the image that you uploaded, that's how the image stays. So if you upload a 200 kilobyte image, that's what stays. If you upload a 20 meg image, that's what's going to be up there. Well, here's the thing. Again, if you're going to go into a production environment, you don't necessarily want to be storing people's 20 meg image files, right? If all you're doing is creating a little photo gallery, you may want to auto format or auto compress all images that are uploaded down to 200 kilobytes or 500 kilobytes, whatever it is that you decide. So that's going to be its own component. So at some point, we're going to get to the place where we have all of this and this is all pretty. And then when people upload an image, then another script will get fired off in order to auto compress that image down to the file size that you want, right? And so that's where you start looking at a relatively simple gallery application that we're dealing with. You start dealing with a lot of different things in technology. So yeah, it's not the one programming language or the one technology you need to learn. It's the 20. Eli, what are the 20 best technologies I need to learn? That's the real question. So anyways, I hope you understood. If not, go down in the description, copy and paste all the code, throw it onto your Linux server, and play with it. Again, that's the big thing with all this stuff is play. Everybody has their own blind spots. Everybody gets tunnel visioned in specific places. So for you, it may be difficult for some reason to understand folder permission. For other people, getting their brain around the MySQL database might be a big deal. So take the code, take everything I've shown you, go start playing with it, troubleshoot, try to figure out what the problems are, and go from there. The big warning that I will say at this point is do make sure that you have a real code editor. Again, I'm using VS Code for these projects going forward, because we are getting to the point that the code is long enough and it's, you know, complicated enough that if you forget one period or you forget one quotation mark, you don't want to be troubleshooting for 2 hours because of that. So do at this point, make sure you're using a code editor of some sort. Don't just use ASCII. I would recommend. You do what you do, though. So as always, I enjoy doing this class. I look forward to seeing you at the next one. If you like the content that I create, please think about going to eliTheComputerGuy.com and becoming a member or donating. Please understand that all of the educational videos are in front of the paywall. That includes the videos, that includes the notes, the diagrams, and the code example. All of that is freely available and in front of the paywall. But if you want to watch opinion videos, or if you want to be able to comment, you do need to become a member. Membership is $5 a month or $60 a year and gives you access to those opinion videos and the ability to comment. If you don't want to become a member, you just want to give a one-time donation, there's also a donate button where you can do that. Please understand, in order to provide the education that I am, it does cost money. Servers cost money, equipment costs money, travel costs money. All of these things cost a reasonable amount of money, and the fact of the matter is YouTube's advertising program no longer supports creators the way that it used to. So if you want these classes to continue to stick around and you find them to be valuable, please think about either becoming a monthly member or donating a few dollars for this project.